Hello students, I am Nisha Nair. In this video, we are going to learn about arrangement of atoms in metallic elements, which are three types, and structure of sodium chloride and structure of cesium chloride, which are known as ionic solids. Now, here we are going to learn about the arrangements of atoms in metallic elements. Previously, we have learned about the metallic bonds, and in general we can see the bond which we can see in metals. Now here, the arrangements of atoms in metallic elements has been classified into three. First one is known as a face-centered cube, second one is known as a body-centered cube, and third one is known as a hexagonal-centered cube. Now, here let me see about the first type, which is known as a face-centered cube. Here, face-centered cube means we can consider here as a cube. You can see the cube, and we know that cube has 8 corners, 6 faces, 12 edges and 1 center. So, those all metallic elements shows face-centered structure means in those metallic elements we can see atoms on 8 corners of cube and on the center of face. Means here in the cube we can see 8 corners and 6 faces. So for the face-centered cube structure we can see atoms on the 8 corners and on the center of face. So example for face-centered cube is aluminium and copper. Means aluminium metal and copper metal shows face-centered cube structure. Means on those metallic elements we can see atoms on the 8 corners of cubes and on the center of the face, means on the 6 faces we can see the atoms. Now next is body-centered cube. Body-centered cube means those metallic elements showing body-centered cube structure means on those metallic elements we can see atoms on the 8 corners of cube and on in the center of cube. We can see there is only one center for the cube, so we can see the atoms on the center of cube and on the 8 corners of the cubes. And example for body-centered cube structure is iron and chromium. Means iron metal atoms and chromium shows body-centered structure, means those atoms can be seen on the 8 corner of cube and on the center of cube. So that structure is known as a body-centered cube structure. Now next third type is a hexagonal close packed structure, where you can see a hexagonal type of a structures and the atoms can be seen on the corners of hexagonal structure and also on the center of the structure. Here the elements or the metals which shows a hexagonal close packed structure is zinc and magnesium. Means zinc metal atoms and magnesium metal atoms shows the hexagonal close packed structure. Now next we learn about the ionic solids. Two types of ionic solids. One is sodium chloride and another is cesium chloride. Sodium chloride is an example for ionic compound because it shows ionic bond. Here we can see two atoms, one is sodium and another is chlorine. Now here you can see the structure of sodium chloride, where the atoms are marked with a two different color. One is blue color and another is red color. Now here blue color shows the chlorine atoms and red color shows the sodium atoms. Here you can see the chlorine atoms on the 8 corners of the cube structure and also on the center of the cube structure. Means here sodium chloride shows FCC structure. Means in sodium chloride structure you can see the atoms on the 8 corners of the cube and also on the face center of cube. Now here the next atom is a sodium atom. Sodium atom you can see on the center of edges of cube. Means there are 12 edges. Means we can see the sodium atoms on the center of 12 edges and on the center of the cubes. Means for sodium chloride structure you can see here chlorine on the 8 corners of the cube and also on the face center of cube. There are 6 face, means in the 6 face center we can see chlorine atom, and on we have a 8 corner for the cube, so we can see at the 8 corners the chlorine atom. And next is the sodium atoms, which can be seen on the center of the edges. There are 12 edges, so in the 12 edges you can see the center atom as a sodium atom, and also on the center of the cube. So sodium chloride shows FCC structure, which is known as a face centered cube structure, and here it can be vice versa also, means we can see sodium on the 8 corners also and chlorine on the edge center also. Means those all atoms which are shown on the corners of the cube will be seen on the face center, and those atoms which are shown on the center of the edges will seen on the center of the cube. This is known as a face center structure, and NaCl shows this type of a structure. Now, next is a cesium chloride structure. It is also a ionic compounds because it has an ionic bond between that, where cesium is a cation and chlorine is a anion. Cesium give 1 electrons to chlorine to have a stable configuration. In cesium chloride structure, it consists of a body-centered structure, body-centered cube structure, where you can see chlorine atoms on the 8 corners of the cube and cesium on the center of the cube. So in body-centered cube structure, we have seen the atoms will be present on the 8 corners and on in the center of the cube. So here you can see chlorine on the 8 corner of the cube and cesium on the center of the cube. It can be also vice versa. We can see the cesium on the 8 corners of the cube and chlorine on the center. So cesium chloride shows a body centered cube structure and NaCl shows face centered cube structure.